proceed and begin.
Thank you. Jazakumullah khairan for having me to talk about this topic. It is very important for not only for us as just specific groups related to specific majors or engineering or science or whatever, but it is the measure of the human way of thinking, the change of paradigm of thinking of the human, of the people. How should we think in the right way to get only our own experience, our background, but the experience and background of the whole humanity for the sake of directing it in the right direction to use it for inventive problem solving. Then the first slide here about just introduction to TRIZ, which is in Russian TRIZ, as I wrote here, but in English it means Theory of Inventive Problem Solving. And I added this link also for Mile, and I have a link here also for TRIZ and for ASME, official link talking about so many topics related to TRIZ. You can go to it and get any information for free for you to increase your background and your knowledge and your understanding of what we're going to say today, because the time is very limited and it is very hard for me or for anyone to talk about TRIZ in only 40 minutes. Even 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, not enough, and we will see. Then our objectives, and I hope that we can cover all of these objectives in this very short time. I will try my best, but I have a doubt that we can do all of this, but as much as we can. Understanding TRIZ philosophy. This is very important. Philosophy, methods, and models of invention for TRIZ, because this is the most important thing, that if we can get it in the right way, we can do it and we can add to it and we can create also so many topics related to TRIZ, as the first founder of this theory did, Mr. Altshuler. How to invent the products, construct the future, and develop your organizations using ARIZ and ITRIZ. ARIZ, which is algorithms of theory of inventive problem solving, how to create algorithms to be as heuristic or as a roadmap for creating the right solution for any problem you have, whether related to business or related to engineering or related to industry. You can create your own algorithms to use it. And also ITRIZ, which is ideation TRIZ, which is related to Western side. When they got ARIZ 1990s, they added to it so many things, and they call it ITRIZ, not just TRIZ. And also we will talk about how to implement and develop inventors and the problem solvers skills and jobs to get the ideal results, and also ideal or optimum results. This is not easy to talk about because there is a difference between ideal solution or results and optimum solution, as we can see, because ideality, we are hoping to get it, but no one can get it. No one is perfect. We are trying to do our best for the sake of getting to that point, but what we can get maybe the optimum solution, the solution that based on our own abilities in our own circumstances at the time. Then how can we identify and resolve problems using contradiction matrix and inventive principles, inventive principles, and subfield analysis? We can concentrate only as much as we can about contradiction matrix, because this is the essence and the most important thing for anyone who is using TRIZ, contradiction matrix or contradiction table, as we will see, and also inventive principles that have been created by Altshuler, the father of TRIZ, and how can we use it for the sake of make it easy for us to solve any problem in inventive way or inventively. Okay, then this is from my own way of thinking, TRIZ, because we can pronounce it as exactly as TRIZ. And what is the difference between TRIZ and TREES? Is it TRIZ or TIPS, which is theory of inventive problem solving in English? There is a difference between TIPS and TRIZ, and that's why I said TRIZ is the Russian acronym for the theory of inventive problem solving. It is the fruits of the TRIZ, of the human thinking or human thoughts through the history around the globe in the East. This is what does it mean in the East. But in the West, it is TIPS. And the tips, we know, this is just the thing that you can get after doing something, just as a reward, maybe money or so. Then the tips that we might gain if we implement it right in the West, and this is the difference between East and West. Anyway, it's just my own opinion. So what TRIZ is all about and how to implement it first to change and promote our own way of thinking, and the second, to develop our organizations. This will be the topic of this webinar. Problem-solving methods. To understand TRIZ and how much it is very important and how much it is different from what we have, otherwise there is no need to create it or no need to learn about it. What is the difference between TRIZ and any other problem-solving methods or theories had been created before or we are using before? What is the difference? That's why we will start with talking about the solving methods or problem-solving methods we had before, and to understand the difference between these methods and TRIZ. The first one, which was used by Thomas Edison, trial and error. What does it mean? It means experimenting until solution is found. Do experiment right again and again and again and again and again until you get what you want. This is not ideal one, but at the same time, I got this quote from Thomas Edison to understand the behavior, to understand the mentality, to understand the character of this kind of person, how much he was insisted, determined to do something and to do it right, and he will try until he get it right. And this is very good way of thinking, even not only about industrial technology, but only about our own way of thinking in general, our daily life. Then Thomas Edison said, genius is 1% inspiration and the 99% perspiration. You have to work hard to get what you want. You cannot depend on your geniusity. You cannot depend on how much you are smart and how much you are very skillful to get something. But whatever your skills and whatever your mentality, you have to work hard until you get what you want. This is the lesson from this one. And also, Thomas Edison generally, he tried 10,000 different ways to create artificial light before he invented the light bulb. Then when he was asked about this, he said, no, I didn't fail. I haven't failed. I have just found 10,000 ways won't work. See the character, the personality, and that's why he was successful. In spite of he doesn't have TRIZ at that time, but at the same time he did. He was one of the best so far inventors in the history around the globe by his own determination and way of thinking and the character, and how can he know how to get what he wants in the right way. The second one for problem-solving techniques, we call it brainstorming. Brainstorming, like a conference, like the definition here, conference techniques by which a group attempts to find a solution for a specific problem by collecting all the ideas spontaneously by its member. Then a group of people sit together and they know what they're going to talk about, and everyone has his own opinion, free opinion to tell, and the free will to tell his opinion about the topic of the conference. And then this brainstorming also is the process of creating an optimal state of mind. optimal state of mind for generating the maximum number of new ideas relating to a specific area of interest. You have to make sure that the people are free. The people, they have to talk in the right way based on their own, not under any kind of pressure or afraid of something, or no, it will not work. That's why brainstorming, it is very important for the sake of getting the free opinions from the people for the sake of solving specific problem. And at the same time, my own understanding for brainstorming, it is about when you look at the problem based on your own experience, it is not enough. Your own experience maybe is not enough. Your own background maybe is not enough. Then your experience with the other's experience, for sure, it will be much better from your own thinking. That's why you can find solution based on collecting all of these ideas together and get the inventive solution for that problem. That's why the essence or the rule for brainstorming: generate as many ideas as possible. Do not criticize. Welcome unusual ideas. Combine and improve ideas. And also from the dictionary point of view, from a linguistic or language point of view, brainstorming is a sudden inspiration, because when you get all of these ideas or about the problem, suddenly maybe somebody can get with the right answer or solution for that problem. This brainstorming. Number 3, what we call it, creative thinking. And also critical thinking, but creative thinking is more related to problem solving more than critical thinking. Creative thinking, which is divergent thinking also we can call it, to think deliberately in ways that improve the likelihood of new thoughts occurring, to maximize the ability of the brain to think of new ideas, the ability to think of original, diverse and elaborate ideas, and also a series of mental actions which produce changes and developments of thoughts. Then creative thinking is very important because you are trying to use your own background and your own way of thinking for the sake of creating something nobody or no one else did it before. That's why it will be new solution or new idea and the creative results of your creative thinking. This is table it is about just the difference between critical thinking, as I said, and creative thinking, because critical thinking also it is a good way of thinking, but at the same time the difference between critical and creative thinking is very important to note. Critical thinking, analytic way of thinking. This is generative. Generate new idea, not just analyze something, but you have to analyze and evaluate like critical thinking. But analyze, it's okay, evaluate, it's okay, but you have to end with generating new ideas. Convergent and divergent. Convergent, because this is talking about everything together for the sake of getting his own point of view, critical thinking. But for divergent, for creative thinking, you have to think about so many things in a different way for the sake of getting something new. It is not just directed to one point or one direction for the sake of getting what you want, like critical thinking, to make judgment about whatever you are talking. But creative thinking is divergent thinking, is trying to have so many different ideas at the same time for the sake of being creative at the end. Vertical and the lateral. Vertical, lateral is very important to understand. What does it mean vertical thinking? Critical thinking is vertical. It means think about this problem in the way it is. Do not think differently. You have to think only about this based on the other's way of thinking. Vertical thinking, think only about that problem. But for lateral thinking is much better than vertical thinking, because you are thinking about so many things at the same time for the sake of connecting them together to get new idea at the end, or creative thinking at the end. Then lateral thinking, it's exactly like when you think about something from different point of views. As much as you have different point of views about the same thing, as much as you can understand it, and not only in 2 dimensions like what we say, but in 3Ds. You cannot look at something from one side and judge it as 3Ds. But if you look at one thing from one side, this will be 2-dimensional. But the real thing, it is 3-dimensional. Then you have to look around everything, look around the subject or the object you are trying to understand, and based on your different point of views, you can create 3D's image in your mind, and it will be easy for you to judge what you are talking about and to create new thinking about what you are talking about. Also, critical thinking probability, based on the probability, may be right, may be wrong. But creative thinking possibility that might be happened, but not now, maybe judgmental or judgment. The critical thinker is judgmental. It's not to judge something, to say this is right or wrong from his own way of thinking, from the topic he is talking about. But this is suspended judgment, not judgment based on like critical thinking. Focused critical thinking, focus about the only one single point for the sake of getting what he want as a decision at the end. But creative thinking diffuse, like diffusion, so many things thinking about it at the same time for the sake of connecting them together to have a different impression and conception about what you are talking about. Objective and subjectives. Objective is critical thinking. Subjective for the creative thinking, because this is just like personal issues. Creative thinking depends on the person himself, depends on his own way of thinking, the person is his personality. Also, critical thinking can get answer, specific answer for what he is talking, but this one might be answer because he didn't finish his creativity yet what he is talking about using creative thinking. Left brain, right brain, this is from medicine or point of view. Verbal and visual, linear and associative, reasoning and richness, novelty. Yes, but this is yes and, not yes, but yes and. The number 4, lateral thinking. Lateral thinking, to understand it, as we said before, we have to differentiate between vertical thinking and lateral thinking. Vertical thinking is sticking with the current approach. You cannot move around. Lateral thinking is coming at a problem from non-standard direction. It separates imitators from innovators. Innovators think about everything at the same time for the sake of getting complete picture, for the sake of invent new solution or something that is new. Also, lateral thinking is exploring multiple possibilities and approaches instead of pursuing a single approach. Lateral thinking is thinking outside the box. This expression I don't like it very much, but outside the box, it doesn't mean if you are talking about science, then get rid of the science and talk about philosophy. It's not right. No, thinking outside the box, from my own opinion, thinking outside the box, it means in a different way. Thinking in a different way, not in the same way that had been followed before, but in a different way. But you have to have the same information about the subject you are talking about. Do not get out of everything and talk about something different because you want to think outside of the box. No. And also, do not allow yourself to be tied down to a certain way of thinking. This is what we mean by lateral thinking. For example, Einstein, he thought about gravity in a different way. He has his own understanding, and at the same time, he knows what Newton did before, and then collecting these two theories, he got something new. That's why Einstein unified his own special relativity and special relativity laws or theory, and Newton's law of universal gravitation, and from this he created his own understanding that the gravity can be described by space-time curvature. If he doesn't have this kind of lateral thinking, he will not be able to create this theory. We come now to talk about TRIZ again. And the philosophy of TRIZ, which is the most important thing I like to talk about it. Then TRIZ philosophy. Nobody can talk about TRIZ like the one who founded, like the co-author or the founder of this theory, like the father of the TRIZ. That's why we will start with Altshuler. Altshuler, he is the scientist who created this theory. What he said? He said in one of his books, at the dawn of the human race, mankind conquered the illuminating power of fire. Now we are learning to conquer something much more powerful, the power of mind, to penetrate and illuminate an unknown future. That's why the thing I love about this kind of personality or this person, he didn't think about himself. He didn't say, what I am saying is the right and everybody should follow me. He didn't do it for the sake of himself, but for the sake of the whole humanity. He cares not only about himself, but for the whole humanity. That's why he thought this way, and he tried to get the way of thinking of the whole inventors or the whole humanity before, for the sake of getting it as his own understanding and background, to use it in creating new, which will be much better than had been what had been created before. That's why this is the philosophy of TRIZ, to use not only your own experience but the whole human experience for the sake of creating solution for or inventive solution for any problem. The second statement or quote from all of us know him for sure, Aristotle. What he said? He said, excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but we rather have those because we have acted rightly. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. Then everything you can get it by training, by understanding, by learning. Nobody had been born as inventor or as the one who knows everything. No, but everything could be gotten by training, by understanding, by learning. And this is what Aristotle said, and he evaluate and appreciate the morals in our hearts and minds, because the morals that in our hearts and minds, the only thing that makes us behave right. The third one, also all of us know about him, Einstein. What he said? He said the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. This is excellent expression because he is talking about change. How should we change ourselves for the time, all the time, for the sake of getting better and better and better? And if we created a problem, we cannot solve the problem with the same mentality that created it. That's why we have to think differently for the sake of solving any problem. And all of this fit with TRIZ philosophy, what we are trying to talk about. Now, then, the essence of what we said, nothing for sure is like what Allah the Almighty said, but at the end I'm trying to say that TRIZ wisdom, we can understand it based as a Muslim based on this verse from the Quran. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. It means Allah the Almighty said, indeed Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves, what is in their minds, what is in their hearts. Then the change comes from you. And when you change to the better, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for you to do the better things, not only for you, but for others, not only in this life, but also for the hereafter. That's why we call this is the TRIZ wisdom from our understanding as Muslims. Do your best for the sake of the change, because the changing is the only constant rules in the whole universe. Everything is changing. Every single second, everything is changing. Okay, back again to TRIZ philosophy, not only based on understanding and the morals and the expressions that I mentioned before, but based on the techniques and way of doing something. Then TRIZ philosophy, we had from before something about what we call it optimization, and the first research I did very long time ago, it was in my diploma in energy conservation. That's why I wrote about it in my bio. It was about using simplex methods, linear programming simplex methods, and what we call it linear optimization, linear programming optimization technique. And the optimization technique based on whether you are trying to minimize the cost or maximize the profit. And you are trying to use the mathematics and linear programming for the sake of getting the solution of how can you get minimum cost, how can you achieve maximum profit. But at the same time, you are under the control of the conditions that you have. You cannot change it. That's why this expression, I read it from one of ASME, a presenter about TRIZ. He said optimization, the enemy of invention. We will see why he did say this and whether he is right or not. Optimization, in my opinion, after I read this and after I understand ASME TRIZ theory, I agree that optimization is the enemy of invention. How? For example, this diagram, as engineers or as scientific way of thinking people, or we for sure understand how can this be drawn. If we imagine that this is for the sake of creating a relationship between the insulation cost and the energy that could be saved. For the insulation, for sure, if the insulation thickness is more, the energy saved will be more. But at the same time, the insulation cost will be more also. That's why if we follow this line for the cost, if we start with very thin insulation, this will be the energy loss will be very high. And as much as we increase the thickness of the insulation, the energy cost will get down until this point. And at the same time, if we are trying to talk about energy saving and also the relationship between energy saving and the cost of the energy or the save of the energy, we will see this line also is coming from energy saved. The energy saved based on this line, it will be much better. Okay, until this point, and then this point will be what we call it the optimum insulation thickness, the optimum thickness, the optimum solution for this point. The thickness here will be this will be the thickness of the insulation, and this will be the total cost of the energy. That's why optimization in this way, it is exactly like balancing two negative things. Balancing two negative things. We didn't change anything, but we're trying to make balance between the cost of insulation and the energy that we lost. That's why it's not right to do this technique, because you didn't do anything in the system, but you are trying to make compromisation. We are trying to make it okay. We have to increase the insulation to a thickness, a certain thickness, for the sake of getting certain energy to be saved. But this is not right, not in the right way. And I remember one of my friends in Chicago, he created his own company. Its name is All Sales Technology. His name is Saeed Al-Hallaj. For the sake of the same idea for the battery and the energy, he created something new. He get rid of this kind of optimization techniques, and he tried to change the design of the batteries itself for the sake of making the thermal resistance much better, and we can use what we call it lithium-ion battery, and this is a different topic. But generally, optimization is not right because you are trying exactly to make balance between two negative things, to making some kind of compromisation. But at the same time, the best thing to do, breakthrough as opposed to optimization. You have to think for the sake of making change, making difference, not just keep everything as is and just to try to make compromisation and to make balance between two negative things. Then TRIZ philosophy also is the problem you are trying to solve unique and special? The other question. For sure, no, because any problem might happen before. Any problem is going on, maybe somebody else solved it maybe a long time ago or nowadays in a different place. That's why is the problem you are trying to solve unique and special from TRIZ philosophy point of view, then don't reinvent the wheel. Don't think about it as it is a new one. Then you have to understand what the others did to solve this kind of problem for the sake of getting their own way of thinking to help you to solve the problem in the right way. Then make the maximum use of resources that you have first before you think about getting something new to solve the problem. You have to think about the resources that you have. Get others' experience through the history around the globe and also your own experience using TRIZ inventive principles, and also which means you will get an answer for this question: what do millions of patents teach us? And from there you can get more understanding and good background to solve the problem you are trying to solve. Discovery of new science, scientific law will be generated, and also some people they said we cannot implement TRIZ on a new discovery or a new scientific law. I have my own opinion that is not right. We can still use TRIZ the same way, because from where we can get the new science based on our own way of thinking, from where we can create new scientific law based also on our inherited way of thinking. Then any new science even or any scientific law, we will get it based on our own human thoughts or human way of thinking. Then still we can use TRIZ to solve any problem, even if we are talking about new science or new scientific law, because the same source where we get new science and scientific law from, the same source we got TRIZ also from our own way of thinking and how the other people think about creating new things. We still be able to understand it based on TRIZ philosophy. That's why technology evolution, based on this technology evolution, follow a highly predictable path based on a cumulative way of thinking from the past and present and to lead to the future. Why TRIZ was created? Created to provide a systematic step-by-step procedures to guide inventors through their solution space and direct them to the area with the best, most ideal solution. To provide inventors with reliable and repeatable objective results that do not depend on personal issues, which is psychological issues. To provide a means to access proven knowledge, patent information, and also to accumulate knowledge of the human innovation experience. This is also the essence of TRIZ, and also answer some of our questions like how can we guarantee that the person who is thinking innovatively will get what he wants. Then there is a formula, we call it innovation success. Innovation success based on so many factors. The most important, also one of them also TRIZ, ITRIZ. Then we said innovation success equals PC which is personal capability multiplied by personal knowledge, multiplied by personal motivation, multiplied by management support, because whoever or whatever you are trying to do in your organization, you cannot succeed without supporting of the management. And all of this also multiplied by 1 plus C under score I minus TRIZ. We will see how can we calculate this function, then this factor based on TRIZ. Do you understand TRIZ or not? What level of understanding you have about TRIZ? And based on this formula could be multiplied by 1, 2, up to even hundreds. That's why they said here CI TRIZ, which is equal to the factor depending on I minus or I TRIZ training, TRIZ training, utilized I minus 3 tools and personal experience in I minus 3 utilization, which means CI minus 3 can be between 0 and 100. 0, this means you will do based on your capabilities and personal knowledge and personal motivation and management only. There is no any additional things based on TRIZ. But if you can imagine that TRIZ, this factor could be 100, then you can maximize the innovation success 100 more than without TRIZ. Then from this table, we can see also factor of innovation success depending on I minus TRIZ. This could be from 0 to 3, 1 to 5, 5, 10, 10, and also even on more than 100. And then we can implement this based on this information and which level you are in TRIZ, and you can multiply this formula in the factor, and you will see how much TRIZ would be very important for maximizing the innovation. TRIZ is an empirical form. What is TRIZ? Also, this could be read because I realize the time is almost gone. Then TRIZ problem solving, we call it DMASI, which is define for any problem. You have to define it, model it, abstract it, solve it, implement it, for the sake of getting problem solving using TRIZ method. This one is a very comprehensive slide, which is talking about everything about TRIZ in one slide, which is theory of inventive problem solving, which is TRIZ. This is coming from more than 3 million worldwide patents, understanding, and also from the history of evolution in different areas of technology and science, social science, business, management, art, and language, etc. And also feedback for TRIZ coming from using TRIZ to solve thousands of problems. We get the information from solving the inventive problems again to modify TRIZ and improve TRIZ, and also practical experience of thousands of scientists, innovators, engineers, managers, businessmen added to TRIZ, and for the sake of improving it, developing it all the time, and to get the best out of it. Then the 4 pillars of TRIZ, as we mentioned, we call it contradiction table, or contradictions and how to control it, ideality, functionality, and also use of resources that you have to solve the problem. Modern TRIZ, you have to standardize everything here based on this slide. Standardized meta algorithms, invention. Algorithm is the way of thinking, the way of solving any problem. How to think about standardized meta algorithm invention, which is the last one. The first one, standardized individual and collective application, and then standardized mass scale training, how much you have trained, standardized presentation and accumulation of expertise, and then out of this we can get the level or the pyramid of the TRIZ models of transformation, which we call it creativity levels and inventing models, and based on this triangle we can understand exactly what the inventing models and the creativity levels work together. What is TRIZ finally? The next step in TRIZ evolution, ITRIZ, which is the next step in TRIZ evolution, advanced, westernized, and software-based version of TRIZ, Version of TRIZ directed not only on problem solving, but revealing the problem, formulating the problem, developing the solution, evaluating the solution, and implementing the solution. Finally, ITRIZ for this slide talking about the resources we can have to add to ITRIZ for the sake of creating the problem for solving the problem differently based on the methods that we have before about problem solving. And finally, we can get ideation trees, which is combination of all effective approaches to create a problem solving and the control of technological evolution. ARIZ, which is algorithms of inventive problem solving, we call it ARIZ, which is algorithms of inventive problem solving, is a process of problem reformulation, is logical and disciplined, continually reinterprets. I'll see the time almost. Continually reinterprets the problem is the main TRIZ methods for solving conflicts. Contradiction matrix also, we can go through to understand the contradiction matrix from the table itself directly. For example, how to solve the contradiction. You are trying to improve this properties or items or terminology. At the same time, this will getting worse. Then, for example, if you are trying to improve weight of moving objects, and at the same time the strength will be getting down, then what you're gonna do? The Altshuler, he created this table, what we call a contradiction table. He put here from his own studying to 3 million inventions or patents before, he studied this and he found you have to solve the problems 28, 27, 18, 14, which is the terminology or the thing that you have to consider for the sake of making a solution between improving this weight of moving objects and at the same time keeping this strength the same or even better. You have to study the 28, which is replace mathematical systems with a non-mechanical system, 27, and 18, and 14. He put these parameters to help you and to direct your own way of thinking for the sake of solving the contradiction between the weight of moving objects and the strength. And to make it okay, you have to solve these problems first. Then possible contradictions represents 39, 39, 39, and 39, and he put it in matrix. And in each one single box, he put the parameters or the things that you have to consider if you are trying to solve any problem related to any box here based on the intersection between the column and the row. Okay, ideality and resource. Okay, for the ideality or the ideal, what do we mean by ideality in TRIZ? All useful functions divided by all harmful functions. This will be the ideality. The ideal solution, the ideal system performs a required function without actually existing, which means you solve the problem without affecting negatively or doing harmful things to the system. Then the function is often performed using existing resources. All systems evolve in this direction over time by resolving contradiction. Then we have to know how to resolve the contradiction between during our inventive problem solving technique. Then how do we get to ideality? Use of resources, use of physical, chemical, geometrical, and other effects. You have to use the resources very well for the sake of improving the inventive solution to get to the ideal one. Resources, what do you mean by resources here? Any substance, including waste available in the system or its environment, had the functional and technological ability to jointly perform additional functions, is an energy reserve, free time, and occupied space. Anyway, this is example, we can read it. How can we understand how to use the resources? For example, for this previous slide, we have this, we want to improve this copper wire or whatever cell. What we gonna do? Wire current, voltage, air, and what kind of resources we have here, and how can we transfer it to parameters like this, and how can we think about each one of these for the sake of improving our own solution. Then finally, system resources. Okay, finally we have to get to this example. This is what we did before. Okay, this is contradiction table. For each item here from 1 to 40, and from 1 to 40, there is an intersection, and for each intersection, for example, for this number 9, 8, 3, 26, 14, then if we want to rate of change of speed, of change, or rate of change, or rate of speed, we have to be careful about the strength of object. It will be affected. Then to keep the strength of object the same or better, we have to consider number 8, 3, 26, 14. We have to rethink about this for the sake of keeping this better or the same. Number 8, which is volume stationary object. Number 3, which is length of mobile object. Number 26, which is quantity of matter. And number 14, which is the strength of objects. And based on this, we can solve the problem, not easily, but needs hard work. Also, the 14 principles, or 14 inventive principles, 40 inventive principles that have been created by Altshuler, the father of TRIZ, started with, if you have any problem, starts with segmentation, and up to the last one, composite metals or composite materials, and at the same time, what you're going to do to solve it, and example of this kind of, that's why it is very important to understand contradiction table, and it's very matrix, and very important also to understand the 40 inventive principles that have been created by Altshuler, and you use all of these kind of things for the sake of understanding your own problem and trying to solve it in the right way using the understanding of TRIZ, which is based on the human way of thinking and the inventors and the human way of thinking around the world through the history. And this is the end of this. I'm sorry for just making a little bit too longer, and I'm ready for any question if you have any question.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Abdul Salam. We understand that the time given, 40 minutes, is a short time to cover a very broad topic. However, I think you have done an excellent job. Folks, we are open for Q&A. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand. I'll give you an opportunity to speak to Brother Abdul Salam directly, or you could put your questions in the question box. You could raise your hand or put your questions. I see there are a few questions already there. So there's one question. You mentioned problem trying to solve unique and special. How do you distinguish unique from special?
Unique from what?
From special.
Unique problem, the problem that had never happened before. I mean, unique from language point of view, something that has no similarity between it and anything else. But special, which is the one problem that is very related to you, to your organization, and you are very interested in solving this problem, whether it is a special problem or unique problem. If your special problem, a unique problem at the same time, then this is going to be the same. But from the language point of view, unique is completely different from what happened before. But special, it is very important to you and for you, and you need to solve this problem because of your own interests and your own way of thinking.
Thank you. Let me move to another question. Innovation success formula, like you mentioned, personal capabilities, personal knowledge, etc. How do you quantify to gauge your personal capabilities or personal knowledge to apply it into the formulas?
You're right. I'm trying to just get the slide, and yeah. For sure, for anyone who should be successful and doing his job as perfect as should be after learning TRIZ, he should only learn what he learned from TRIZ, but he has to have his own ability, his own capability, his own way of thinking. Because TRIZ, what I didn't like about TRIZ before when they say systematic invention. I said, how come systematic invention? Invention is invention. How can it be systematic? But I realized I was wrong, because everything you can learn and you can get it. And at the same time, as long as you don't have personal capabilities, how can you start learning TRIZ? What is your motivation? What is your knowledge that pushed you to go to this theory to learn about it? As much as you can as personal capabilities, like understanding very well the problem you are talking about, understanding the invention technique and theories, understanding how much the invention is very important, not only for you, but for the human being as a general, and at the same time, based on your own knowledge, how much knowledge you have to solve the problem. If you are engineer, you will know how much it is very important to know how to solve the problem. But if you are not an engineer and you don't have any background about problem solving and how much the problem is very important to be solved, because we need the solution right now, then you will lose your motivation. I mean, this is not only for me to evaluate how much you have capabilities or how much you have knowledge. It is up to you. It's up to the person who is trying to learn how to be innovative or how to be inventor and how to be success in this kind of career. Then he has to look at his own capabilities. Is he able to go through this kind of knowledge and science and technology? Does he have the knowledge that will make him go through this easily and understand everything? And at the same time, motivation, because anyone who is doing anything, for sure he will meet with obstacles and difficulties, and he should go. For example, for me, I will tell you something. I paid from my own money to get this kind of understanding for TRIZ through ASME. It is a lot of money. I paid it from my own pocket, not from my company, because my company will pay for me. No, that's why, because of my own motivation, make me think that way. Get it, whatever it costs. That's why for the innovation success, personal capabilities, personal knowledge, personal motivation, and also the management support in the company, all of these factors to be on the side of the person to be very successful later on. If he learned TRIZ very well, and if he get the practice based on this slide, for example, complete ITRIZ knowledge plus substantial practical experience, over 100 problems solved he did, including at least 5 solutions of the level 3 or higher, then in this case this factor will be 100 or more than 100 even. Then the maximization and multiplication of the innovation success will be times 100. And this is based on your understanding of TRIZ. And you cannot continue in TRIZ learning and understanding unless you have what we mentioned here in this formula. The capabilities, up to you to measure it. Knowledge, up to you to understand how much knowledge you have about this. Your own motivation based on your work or your own interests, and also management support that support you to solve the problem inventively.
Thank you. We have another question by Brother Muhammad Faisal Aghani from Indiana, who's introduced himself also. He said, I saw on the PowerPoint that one of the features of the TRIZ is qualitative based. However, why is there a formula for TRIZ innovation success? It is because the qualitative is flexible and all depends upon the informants.
I will try to get the slides. Qualitative or quantitative, or I mean, the quantitative is based on mathematics, based on rules, based on learning theories. But at the same time, TRIZ is not about mathematics. It is not 1 + 1 = 2. No, it may be 1 + 1 = 100, because the parts is more than the whole is more than the parts. That's why in the qualitative more important than quantitative. Why more important or more difficult? Because you need to do it based on your own understanding and your own evaluation. It is not just mathematics. It is not formula to just apply it and do it. That's why this theory, we are always talking about it as it is under it is still evolving theory. It is not just a theory in mathematics and we put it and done. No, everything could be changed in the future for the sake of improving this way of understanding of the human being, using everything you have and everything you have from the history, from the other people, that's why you have to live not only based on your own way of thinking or your own understanding or your own point of view, because one of the expressions, sorry about that, of one of the philosophers, he said, I mean he's Stephen Covey, he said, we claim that we are seeing the world as it is. But this is wrong statement. We are seeing the world as we are, because everyone has his own personal lenses, his own personal way of thinking, his own sight, his own understanding. That's why if we want to make ourselves as qualitative, as a person who when he make a judgment, he will be right. We have to have the opinions and the points of view of the whole humanity about solving their problems, and this we cannot get it using mathematics, using quantitative analysis, but it should be qualitative understanding, qualitative analysis, and based on the qualitative and the quantitative, we can finally measure how can we solve our problems. But mainly it is based on qualitative understanding and the qualitative analysis for the sake of choosing the right way of solving the problem. It is not just mathematics or algebra or scientific theory. It is based on our own way of thinking, and the way of thinking could be qualitative, not quantitative.
Just to supplement it, Brother Abdul Salam, for my own clarity, how would you who would be the one to decide whether it's qualitative, I mean, rather than quantitative? I mean, you mentioned that it has to be quality evaluation, but what is the measure, what is the gauge to decide whether it's quality or not?
Again, brother, this depends on the problem itself. If the problem is mathematical problem or qualitative analysis, even I can say you don't need TRIZ. You don't need to understand the TRIZ for the sake of solving it. But if the problem is more difficult, so difficult that you cannot understand or you cannot decide the way of solving it in a traditional way, then you want to get untraditional way or inventive way of solving the problem. This means by default it is qualitative analysis. It's not quantitative, because if it is quantitative, you can use mathematics, you can use linear algebra, you can use the model of optimization like what I mentioned before, because optimization I mentioned before and I did before almost 30 years ago, it was about using simplex methods, using linear programming model. Put everything in numbers. This is optimization technique or optimization analysis, optimization to optimize the outcome of the solution, but at the same time you use mathematical analysis. That's why it is completely different from TRIZ, because TRIZ does not depend on quantities, does not depend on the mathematics, but depends on your own way of thinking, your own understanding, and how much you can get from the other's way of thinking and understanding for the sake of adding it to your own to solve this problem in the right way. That's why as I mentioned, if I see the world based on my own way of thinking, and at the same time, as Einstein said, I mentioned here, you cannot solve the problem by the same mentality that created it before, then using the TRIZ should be mainly depend on qualitative understanding, qualitative analysis. But at the same time, you need for sure quantitative analysis at the same, but not as much as qualitative understanding. The quality of the problem and how to get the solution, which is very qualitative, which is very important for everybody, based on human way of thinking, based on morals, based on values, because not everything related to money and quantities and the numbers. So many things we can get it and we can enjoy it without getting any money out of it, because this is our own quality, our own way of thinking to improve. For example, if I paid from my own pocket for the sake of the needy people, it's okay. It is very important for morals and the values and the qualitative understanding, but at the same time, those poor people, maybe when they get rich, they will add to the society much more than what I can do by my own quantitative analysis. That's why it is no contradiction whatsoever between quantitative and qualitative, but at the same time, TRIZ understanding and the TRIZ theory depends from the way they created from the first time. As I mentioned, what this guy said, Altshuler, about his theory, it is related to illuminating the human being brain and minds for the sake of conquer the future, unknown future, to make the future better. We cannot do this using just 1 + 1 = 2, qualitative analysis.
Hello, brother, can you hear me?
Hello, yeah, I hear you now.
Sorry, I think we had a
No problem.
quality lab.
Okay.
Yeah, there was just one question. Let me go back. Sorry. Yes, are there any renowned products or patents which were invented through TRIZ methodologies which got any recognition? Can you name few?
Say it again, please. Name what?
Any renowned products or patents which were invented through TRIZ methodologies which got any recognition?
For sure, a lot. But I mean, I can send you this information later. But for sure, this theory is very successful in the West and the East at the same time, and is doing great job. The best theory nowadays in understanding the future and building the future based on TRIZ understanding from ITRIZ, and but for a specific thing had been done using this theory, I cannot collect all, and I didn't think about get only one inventive solution using this. For sure, it is very successful. And so many solutions, otherwise the organization will not adopt it, will not use it. It had been taught in most of the most important universities in the United States and Canada even about TRIZ. That's why, but for a specific problem solving using this, actually I didn't think about this before to prepare it. But for sure, if you go to the internet and look for this information, for sure you will find millions and millions of patents have been created using TRIZ theory.
And just one last question from the brother on future modifications of TRIZ. You mentioned TRIZ is going to be used to reveal the problems than solving it. Can you elaborate?
I said the TRIZ could what?
I think on future modifications of TRIZ, you mentioned TRIZ is going to be used to reveal the problems than solving it. I think it was like a future modification slide.
Future, which number? Sorry for the slide.
The slide had also like the software, moving towards the software or something, I remember the slide.
Which number? Sorry, which number?
Brother,
slide number.
Let me ask the brother who asked. Do you know the number?
Sorry.
You have to. I think it was the future modifications.
Future modification.
I remember that slide had a moving towards the software development applications as well for TRIZ.
Okay. ITRIZ? For ITRIZ? Algorithms are... But anyway, just let me the question of the question. Sorry again. The question, I can answer the question without the slide. It's okay. The question about
the question is that
the future of
TRIZ is going to be used also to reveal the problems than only solving it.
For sure. If we understand it well, and we have it in the right way, for any problem, we can see the organization, for example, see the project, and understand the project very well based on ABC from TRIZ. How can you understand, formulate, and display, and everything? And based on this, you can understand if everything is perfect as TRIZ said or not. If it is not perfect as TRIZ theory, then we can add and delete and modify for the sake of creating the better situation for the organization, or even for the person himself. That's why recognizing or discovering the problem, it is very simple, because before that we didn't have it. We didn't have any way of evaluating the organization or the situation for the sake of making it, knowing if it is going in the right way or not. But as long as we have tools from TRIZ, we have the organization and we have understanding. For example, like this slide, how can we use our resources? So many problems existed in the companies, and at the same time the solution is there, but needs somebody to think about using the resources in the right way. Get rid of something for the sake of something, or add something, or delete something. And for example, understanding TRIZ, it makes you all the time thinking about what is the best that could be done. And based on this, you can discover, I will not say problems, you can discover how much you can improve the company you are working on, or the situation you are dealing with, or the people you are contributing with them for solving any problem, based on your own understanding to TRIZ and its methodology. You can understand exactly if everything is going in the right way or not. Are we using the resources or not? Do we have the ideality for the outcome or not? What is the relationship between the price and the cost of the products and the revenue? How can we improve this? How can we eliminate or add something to make the situation better? Not only based on optimization like what we were before. Everything based on this problem solving based on optimization, how to optimize. But at the same time, from the TRIZ point of view, optimization is just how to deal with two bad things at the same time. It's not right. You have to think using what breakthrough thinking, breakthrough. You have to think deliberately. You have to think in the right way for making a difference, for making a change, not just compromisation, not just this is right and this is right, it's okay, we can get together, it's okay. But you have to think differently for the sake of improving the situation you are in differently also. That's why TRIZ, for sure, it helps in evaluating the situation and knowing whether there are some problems or not, whether everything is perfect going the right way or not. That's why they created ideality. Ideality, no one is ideal, no one is perfect, but at the same time they are always trying to get to the best solution. Not the solution we have, it's okay, as long as we accept it, then this is the right way. No, it's not right. Optimization is not right for TRIZ, and the TRIZ help the people to understand and to evaluate the situation they are in, and whether it is right or not right, whether we can improve it or make it better or not. And always there is a way to think differently for improving the situation on the TRIZ also knowledge and background.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Salam. That really brings us towards the end of the webinar. I would like to thank you on behalf of Madinah Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship, MAL, for
thank you very much.
Sharing a valuable experience, an excellent presentation. And folks, all of
those
thank you
very much
who attended, thank you very much to all of those who attended also. The soft copy presentation of this webinar and the recorded version will be uploaded on MAL community in the next couple of days, so please, I just broadcasted the link, community.mile.org. Stay tuned and you'll be able to access the recording of this webinar as well through webinar archives. And before I conclude, any concluding remarks or last remarks, Brother Abdul Salam, you would like to give?
Yes, sorry about that. Just this is not making advertisement or something about myself or about the next topic, but I'm trying to say I also have excellent idea about TRIZ and what we call it blue ocean strategy. This is one of the best I did also for ASME, and at the same time ready to do it for you. Blue King, human way of thinking, the strategy that based on think win-win, like, but how can you use even TRIZ and what we call it blue ocean strategy, not red ocean strategy, what we have right now, just cooperating with each other for the sake of achieving the best. How can you create strategy based on this? This is what we call it blue ocean strategy, and if you agree, later on we can arrange another meeting related to blue ocean strategy. And thank you very much for your attendance, and I'm very happy.
Yes, Brother Abdul Salam, certainly I think we will be in touch, and definitely we would like to have you again on this webinar, or maybe a series of webinars for which we will keep you engaged. But for now, I would like to conclude this webinar with the note of thank you for all of you who attended, and a special thanks to Mr. Matwali Abdul Salam. I will be ending this webinar. You all will be automatically dismissed out. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.